Welcome back to Dadpuzzles. Today we have a guest who is a man on a mission, not to hustle harder, but he wants you to live deeper. His name is Clay Garrett. He's the founder of Campfire Gentlemen, a powerful project helping men reclaim meaning in their lives through five simple, timeless pillars, which he will go through, with us. And he's a husband and a father of two, and he's a storyteller. This is something that we really truly admire here at Dad Puzzles because storytelling is the key to a lot of things. So
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
yes, sir. Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about you, sir? Besides what
Sure.
the little spiel I did about you.
I appreciate the spiel. um, yeah, I'm like I said, a father of two. I'm a husband. I live in Texas. Me and my wife have been married almost 15 years, and I have a 10-year-old daughter and an almost 12-year-old son.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we live here like, in the northeast corner of Texas
Okay.
on a lot of plot of land that could best be described as a farm.
Okay.
And so a couple dogs, several cats, a chicken, several horses, and mules,
Yes.
and so it's
Amazing.
it's a party.
Good stuff. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
That's really amazing. I always admire that lifestyle. We, I only got to enjoy that most of the time when we visit our grandparents. Because they were living in the village, like quote unquote, and we were in the city. So I think that lifestyle is so organic, is so natural, is beautiful, my friend.
Yes, it's and yeah, my we have a garden that my wife
Hmm.
tends to, and so I had a salad for lunch that came from our garden. So that's
Yes,
it,
sir.
it's a
Our
good
kids,
life.
most of the kids, yes, sir. And it's so sad that nowadays most of the kids they have no idea about this. Growing up, I remember we used to have the same thing. Like we used to have, like in the garden, where there's spinach, like the cabbage, all the vegetables and stuff. We got them right out, like in the backyard. There's no such thing anymore nowadays. People, like even in the suburbs, they don't even have that anymore. They all they have is just grasses and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Like growing up, like my parents gardened occasionally, but my grandparents had big
Mm-hmm.
gardens. That we go. And my wife tells stories about her father gardened, and he'd just go out and pick something, and they'd have it for dinner.
Right.
And just
There
the
you go.
connection to the food and to the land,
Nice.
and all of that. And just the accomplishment of planting something and watering it, and it taking that time, and the slow food almost of it
Right.
all is makes you appreciate it.
Amazing. Amazing. So, sir, what moment led you to realizing that life needs more meaning? Not not just the hustling. Like you need that deep, like meaning to life.
Right. It was during COVID is what I
Right.
think is what ultimately started it. Was I was working at I've been working for at that point 15 years
Mm-hmm.
in marketing departments. My specialty is in graphic design, and so I'd been in corporate marketing departments for at least a decade at that point. And I
Okay.
had what I thought was a secure job, a good job. I'd worked my way up like you're supposed to, and COVID hadn't kicked off in the United States really yet. No one had really talked about it, and
Mm-hmm.
so, but it was affecting what I was working in the automotive field, and it was
Mm-hmm.
affecting that,
Mm-hmm.
and just no one knew it yet, and so it was affecting the previous quarter's earnings and all that sort of stuff, and
Right.
so the company I was working for had to lay quite a few people off, including me, and
Mm-hmm.
so I went home, and I remember distinctly telling my wife, the first I walked in, my wife said, "You need to go file for unemployment." And
Mm-hmm.
so I said, "Okay." And so I go to the unemployment office, and I apply for unemployment. And at the end of all
Mm-hmm.
the whole process, they tell you, it'll take 2 weeks before you get your first paycheck, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember laughing and thinking, I mean, I told her, I'll
Mm-hmm.
have a job by then.
Mm-hmm.
And and then
Mm.
less than a week later, uh, the thing with Tom Hanks getting COVID and sort of scaring everyone started, and then the NBA canceled their season, and all of a
Oh
sudden,
man.
no one was hiring anybody. So
Right.
I went from a guy who thought I was going to get a job in 2 weeks to the world shutting down in 2 weeks,
Right.
and it was
Man.
clear I was not getting a job. I was going to have to figure out what to do next.
Right.
And it was the first time in my life I had basically nothing to do, and
Mm-hmm.
had to sort of create meaning during that
Mm.
time. And so I
Right.
got back to, or I got two things I'd never gotten to,
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time with the kids because school was canceled, and most of my family's teachers and school's
Mm-hmm.
canceled, so they are at home
Right.
also. And so
Okay.
all of a sudden, I'm connected with my brother. I'm connected with my dad, who were both teachers.
Right.
And so, and those are things I'd never done. Me and my wife had never really spent, that.
Want real results that last? Stop wasting time on quick fixes. A no-fat approach to sustainable fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being is your roadmap to lasting transformation. Learn how to fuel your body, move with joy, and cultivate mental strength, all without the restrictive rules. Start your journey to sustainable success. Download your guide today.
Much time together, and essentially you're in isolation with your family members.
Right.
And so, a lot of people, it turned out to be a very bad time in their life, but it turned out to be one of the best times of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it in the moment. Like, I realized this is a chance for me to reset. This is a chance that this is, who knows, 8 months, a year, whatever it's going to be, with just me and my kids. And
Mm-hmm.
how few kids ever get just that much time with their parents
Mm-hmm.
in their childhood, at that age. My
Right.
kids were, what, 6 and 8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I appreciated it in the moment, and I wasn't, scrambling, worrying how, what's going to happen next. I was like, I'm going to invest as much into this as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it all started. And then recently, the way Campfire Gentlemen started was
Right.
I have these, lots of people do have these bouts where they can't sleep. They wake up at some odd time of the night and can't go back to sleep. And so they're just up.
Right.
And so I was going through one of those, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm just wandering around in the kitchen, and
Right.
my computer, which is usually in my office, was inside the house at this particular night, and it's just sitting there on the table. So I walk over there and hit the keyboard, and it lights up, and I'm like, sure, I'll sit down. And I just sat down and opened a Google Doc and started typing stuff.
Right.
And just sort of a stream of consciousness, what's on my mind. Maybe if I type out everything on my mind, maybe that's keeping me up.
Right.
And so I just write stuff for about 15 minutes. Then I start looking over, and there's this one section that just sort of jumps out at me that says, I really like graphic design, but at this point I've been doing it 20 years, and I'd really like to do something different. I'd like to do something that helps people. And I thought, what does that even, like, what does that even mean? Like, what is helping people? What could I do to help? Kind of thing. And then I thought about. Then I went to bed and woke up the next day super excited about the idea of like exploring this thing that I'd written the night before.
Right.
And so over a couple months, I just sort of like thought and distilled things down, and then just sort of built this idea up. And I got to the point where I thought I was going to do some sort of like online course on like goal setting, and it just sort of kept evolving to the point that I was looking back, and I was like, there was this clear line of demarcation during COVID where I was like, my life was one way, and then it became another way, and that other way was much better and much more intentional. And the way I wanted to live my life. And I was like, what did I discover during that
Right.
that led to all those things, and what can I take from that and present to men like me, and so that's like, I still have, like I said, the 5 pillars. I think I started out, there was like 15 or 20 of them, and I just kept looking and saying, these are similar. That actually belongs here.
Right.
And I just, like I said,
Right.
over a few
Amazing.
months, yeah,
Yes.
built it, and I had been,
Amazing.
I'd written a couple things before, and I realized, I really liked that. I didn't have a chance to really do it professionally, but I realized I liked writing. It was fun. It was, a way to get my ideas out, and and I think a lot, and so I'm driving around with these thoughts, and like I need to get them down on paper and, get them. It isn't like I'm surrounded by like tons of people who want to hear me babble all day long, and so I'm like, someone else can read them and they can decide
Right.
whether they want to hear them or not. And so,
Right. Amazing. I think this is good, my friend. I think the idea of noting, like jotting down stuff is so amazing. Especially in the self development field, it's something that people don't tap into. And I'm glad that you started. And like look where they got you. And I think you should not stop. Keep going, because that will continue to create your your project and even more projects. So this is amazing, brother.
yes, thank you. It's been really, it's grown faster than I expected, and it's been fun to see.
There you go. There you go. So, is there any, like a personal failure that became the Campfire Gentleman story, and how did it shape you through the fatherhood? Through the fatherhood. I know you shared the issue, the example with being laid off, and that's what led to everything. But is there any other like personal thing that you relate to with your project?
Well, I think the idea of like a lot of social media is obsessed with this hustle culture, and
Right.
this pushing this. You have to, you see the memes and the rise and grind kind of memes and all that sort of stuff, and
Right.
and everybody seems like they're trying, to be CEOs and CFOs and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I don't actually think,
CEO.
yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And I don't actually think that's most men. I don't,
Right.
that certainly wasn't me. And it was almost nobody that, it's almost nobody that I knew was like that.
Right.
And they didn't really want to be like that. And so I'm like, there's this group of men that nobody is talking to. And, if they're talking, I certainly haven't, discovered them. And so I'm like, I think this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to read about. I want
Right.
people I can relate to.
Right.
And so that was really like, and I probably fooled myself into thinking before COVID that I had this, CEO, rise and grind mindset. And I can't imagine, almost 5 years later, what I'd have been like if I'm still trying to chase this thing that I wasn't ever surely wanted in the first place.
Right.
And there's not a lot of, not a lot of noise on social media of people saying, it's okay, you don't have to do that. You're not weird if you don't want all this.
Right.
And you do want to focus on your family and being there for your kids and, your buddies and all
Right.
this sort of, finding purpose instead of, just making more and more and more and more money. You can
Absolutely.
invest in purpose. And,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of where it all originated from. And,
Okay.
and so.
I share with you the passion because most of the time, you have, like if you look on the social media, like if you look into marketing, like you have been in the business, the whole funneling and everything else, if it's a social media. So you have the hustle, like you have to post, you have to do this, so it seems to me there is so much you have to do all the time. And the gentleman, the coach that I met at the end of 2024, I found out that he has a method where you don't have to, you still have to work hard. There's no, if somebody tells you, oh yeah, this is passive income, like you sleep, you make money, that kind of bullshit, excuse me. No, we, like we don't believe that, you know what I mean? So, so I found a way that, he has like a system where you really have to work, yes, but also you don't have to continuously, sacrifice your life, your family, and everything else, and that's where we definitely align, me and you. Yes, sir.
Well, at the end of the whole, like it took me almost 18 months to get a job after my layoff.
Right.
And during I applied for a job. They called. They wanted to do an interview, And before the interview, I wrote an email and told them, I'm like, look, I don't just, this isn't in the job description. I said, but I'm only going to work a hybrid position. Like I've got too much built with my family over the last 4 years for me to, or last year, I'm sorry, to come in and work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And so I'm like, if that's a deal breaker, I'm okay with that, but I'm not going to take a job that supersedes my family and my commitments I've made to them. And so like, I know what's important to me. And,
Right.
this job is not as important to me as my family. And so so I
Absolutely.
protected that, and they were very accommodating. And,
That's,
that was, like I said, there was a particular incident I remember where the CEO of the company wanted to have a meeting at 1 o'clock. And,
okay.
and my boss actually told him, he's like, well, Clay's going to leave. Clay leaves at 1 o'clock. He's not going to be here for the meeting. So we have to reschedule
Right.
the meeting, or he's going to have to do it remotely, but he's going to leave. And so, and that's exactly what happened. I left and I did the meeting remotely, and everyone else was in the boardroom. And so, I'd
There you
made
go.
that
Principles.
boundary.
Right. Absolutely. That's one of the major things that sometimes, people that we're in the 9 to 5 or the corporate world, that we get abused by that. Let's say, like whether you're sick or there's a family situation or whatever, they do not respect any of that because you're just a number, and so it helps for you to really be established in your own personal, you know, family values, etc., and like your health. Because if you sacrifice your health, and then you're still a number to them, but who's suffering the most? Your family, right?
Right.
So what you did is amazing, my friend. No, I know some people they have no option. I understand because
Sure.
there's nothing else that is being fixed. So they have no you know they have nothing else to fall back on, and that I understand. I'm not that kind of guy. Just stay here and stay. I remember correcting one of my previous guests. He was stating like this, but he was making as if it's a sin for somebody else to not do that. But I think you have to understand some other people, they have no option, and they have to feed their family, and family is big family, and it doesn't matter whether small or big family, but he's like they're depending on him, so he has to do what he has to do, but that's why I hope that we can help each other, through your project and my project and many other like fatherhood projects. We can better ourselves as dads and look at the different options so that we can have that flexibility.
Right. And it's all about intention. Uh, like if you have you have to do that 8 to 5 job like most people do. I was in a great position where I could make those demands, but
Right.
it's all about living intentionally and
Right.
just and one thing I'm really big on are these daily, like these short daily processes. And for instance, me and my wife have a daily routine where we have these 5 questions that we ask each other. And we learned them at a marriage seminar, and so it's not
Okay.
my original idea or anything, but it's
Nice.
just five
Nice.
minutes every day.
Right.
And some days it's just checking the box that we did it, and some days that leads to a 45-minute conversation. And so
Right.
you have to have these sort of cornerstone or these touch points that are daily,
Right.
and that will leave room for spontaneity.
Right.
And so if you were working in an 8 to 5 job, 9 to 5 job, and you and your son do something every day at 5:30,
Right.
some days that's the 10-minute thing you have planned, and some days
Right.
that the whole turns into a whole hour and whatever else. And so
You. Yeah.
you have those intentional, like I said, touch points, and then
Right.
it can expand on days that it can, and on days that it can't. At
Right.
least you did that.
Right.
And so
That's amazing. That's a good, like among, to like add to that. I saw something interesting yesterday. One of the couple shared how they made their marriage as a business, in a sense that when they got married, they were like almost $1 million in debt. So they made it in a way that like every year, during the anniversary, they celebrate with their kids and stuff like that. They discuss about family, spiritual, the finances, everything. So, and I think it was quite inspiring. And somebody else was commenting that how, they even have this, almost a similar thing, but also they even have PowerPoints. I'm like, wow, this is, so this, like what you're doing is amazing because it's something that corporate take advantage of it all the time, doing these huddles, So I think those 5 questions, between you and the wife, that's your family huddle right there,
And I know people will say, well, if you don't sort of participate in this, stay late, get there early kind of idea about businesses, that you'll lose out on some money, and they're almost assuredly right. But it's just about, what do you want to be the priority? I mean, do you want your family to be the priority, or do you want that 10% extra that you would make to be the priority? And for me personally, I decided that the family, I'll give up the 10% more I could make, for the family.
That's amazing, my brother. And this is the choice that you need for folks to know, like among your team members, the people that will join you, they're the ones that really choose the family, not the folks that are wanting the 10%, because, there's no alignment over there. So this is amazing,
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So how do we balance that ambition and presence, without having this burnout? I know, is you having those, like you put these, thresholds, you're like, what, at this time, this is my boundary. I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. Anything else besides boundaries that helps you to balance that ambition and presence, because being present with your wife and kids is something important, So how do you manage that, my friend?
But mostly by like these daily, small processes, because, we try to eat lunch, or we try to eat dinner together every night. It doesn't happen every night, but we try to, and we ask the kids how their day was, and tell me something, that happened today that was fun, or something that you didn't like, or whatever, and and so it's similar to the thing with me and my wife in the mornings, and
Nice.
sometimes they want to talk, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the answer is nothing, It's just, and we've also started doing a thing where we lay down with my.
Tired of fads and frustration? Build sustainable wellness for life. Forget quick fixes that fail to deliver lasting results. Imagine feeling energized, moving confidently, and radiating health for years. Achieving true wellness isn't about exhaustion or deprivation. It's about building habits that fit seamlessly into your life. Invest in yourself today for lasting fitness, radiant health, and mental well-being. Ready to transform your life? Click here to learn more. By purchasing the book, you'll gain lifetime access to updates, newsletters, future editions, and exclusive wellness bonuses from the author. Start your journey to wellness now.
My son, and mostly my wife does it, and occasionally I do it, where we just lay down with him for 10 minutes before he goes to sleep, and he can just talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And sometimes he just lays there and says nothing, and sometimes he tells you about the day, even though he didn't want to tell you about it at dinner.
Right.
And so it's just, that 10 minutes of undivided attention, or that 5 minutes of, just those connections, making room for connection is the big deal.
Amazing. This is good, my friend. I think, go ahead, my friend.
That's just the primary way, is just, like I said, to make room for connections, to make room for spontaneity. And so if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Like I said, you check that box on that day.
Right.
That might expand to something on the next day.
Okay. I think this is amazing. Those are the small daily ritual things that you do with your family, and they definitely build that deep trust with your kids and your wife as well. That's really beautiful, and that's why I love the idea of systems. Systems is what runs. Let's say in the healthcare, the medical quality and stuff. We have systems. So systems in business. Most of the successful people in terms of business, they have systems. Our like our grandparents, they had systems. Like with their farms. systems is the way to go. So I really support that, my friend. And maybe we can, create a way that we can share, we can make sure that people get these great points, like those 5 questionnaires between you and your wife and stuff like that. People should definitely, like check out your website and have access to that. I think this is, and more, right?
Yes, there is a email newsletter that will go out. It goes out on Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And Mondays is a single article that's a longer reflection, 5 to 8 minutes or so worth of reading. And then the Thursday one is shorter, 4 or 5 stories, much shorter, that in some ways reflect on and hammer home the points of the first one, and gives more actionable tips and ideas and things like that.
Okay. And so through the lens of a Campfire Gentleman, what does the legacy really means to you, my friend?
Legacy, at this point, I've decided my legacy is, how much my example can affect my children and my wife, and even further out, just my, close friends and family.
Right.
And, I think about things like how my grandparents, they didn't sit around. I can't imagine they sat around thinking, I'm going to act this particular way and it's going to influence my son and my grandchildren and those sorts of things. But it did. And so that's what I think about with legacy is how is the way that I'm going to act and the things that I do going forward affect other people in a positive way or, in a negative way if I don't do it in the right way. And so that's really,
This is amazing. I know we definitely have to chat again, because there's so much we can chat about. Let's say, from masculinity to, there's so many, many topics that we can speak as dads that can be helpful to fellow dads. So I really look forward to that, my friend. And, here at Dad Puzzle, we, initially my goal was to improve the relationships between mom, us and our wives and us and our kids and stuff like that. And it was amazing. And also I was missing out on some people, let's say, in terms of the financial freedom. So that has been my new venture going forward. My website will be reflecting that pretty soon. I also do have a school group that, I hope you can join me in many other dads. So there we can kind of, advise each other, on different things, because dads are at different levels. We're not. It's not one size fits all, right? You have people from the background that they've been spoon fed, people that have been hustling from the young age, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So please join us as well, and we're definitely going to be supporting you. My friend will be, we are all going to be campfire folks. I know some people, they don't like the camping situation. Like I remember when I was in Africa, I grew up, we were doing safaris and stuff. And the idea of being in a tent and next to you is a lion. I don't want to, I don't want to picture that, my friend,
But still that campfire will gather people, even if they don't like camping, they like gathering around a fire and
yeah. Oh, so my goodness!
There's always something about it.
So no, I hope to I hope we can really do more of this, my friend. Is there any last words, or what do you think about, let's say, fatherhood today, and what do you think about Dad Puzzles? I'll let you speak a little bit about that.
Oh, fatherhood today. Part of me thinks that it seems to be devalued almost publicly, but I feel like privately, there's a lot of people that are like, we don't understand why this public devaluing is happening, and they think it's as valuable as ever. And that's kind of the underserved group of men that I'm talking to. That there are still people, lots of people, who value this just as much as they always have.
Right.
And so I'm here to connect to those people and give my perspective on fatherhood and
Absolutely.
parenting, marriage and everything else. So,
Yes, sir. Thank you, my friend. I think you're in the, keep going. We need you. There's so many other fatherhood projects as well. We can definitely. We have to make sure that we connect with all of us together and have some projects together. I think because the goal is one goal. There's I have a friend of mine in Toronto. He's also doing the fatherhood project as well. We were discussing about some of the fatherhood initial folks that are trying to do this, but their mindset is a little bit off. So he was giving the example of being hungry, like thirsty and hungry. There's a difference. Some people, like you'll be amazed. Maybe we can talk this offline. Some people, their mindset is really off, and so you have to watch out.
yes,
That are in this space. It's pretty sad. Yes, sir.
it can be for sure.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, my friend. Keep doing what you're doing. We need you. We support you. And please, folks, check out Campfire Gentlemen. Is an amazing website. There's a couple blogs over there, and also sign up for his newsletter. His newsletter, as he has mentioned, and also don't forget to sign up for Dadpuzzles. Join our school community. We hope to grow and also help more fathers, so we can have that deep, meaningful life, as my friend Clay Garrett has mentioned, not just the hustle culture. Really, that's why as you can see those reels I mentioned about, you really have to have the system, which my friend already is using the system. You have to have the system so that you won't have the hustle culture and mentality, and your health and your relationship with your family is more important than anything else that you're trying to build in this short time that you're here in this magical world. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Oh,
All right.
thank you.